All right, so today we are going to do something phenomenal. Today we are going to do something that has never been done to a jukebox like this before. I can safely say, after scouring the internet and scouring YouTube, I have not found a jukebox that will be like the one we are going to create today. So far, we've already ripped off the front plate and we've put in a display screen with touch jams. We've powered this thing with a mini PC that will go ahead and power the touch jams program. We've already added the Better Bright sign on top that will show the music that is playing, and it will also show musical charts. We've added neon lights that will turn on and off with the jukebox. I've already gone ahead and added a drop-down screen that will come down from the ceiling, and we can watch music videos from the bar table. But it just isn't enough. It's never enough in this cave. Never. That's why today I'm going to show you how to create the very first ever Sonos Jukebox. Okay, so Best Buy had their once a year sale that they usually do on the Sonos amp and the Sonance speakers. And it was $100 more, but I figured what the hell, you know, with inflation and the way things are going with the economy, I mean, $100 more wasn't that bad. So I ended up and I bit and I bought, and my wife is pissed, but what else is new? So I decided, you know what, it's time to just take this jukebox to another level. Let's take this jukebox to a level where I won't have to upgrade this thing anymore. Yeah, right. But I wanted to get to that point where I could use these two speakers that are being powered by those, I believe they were Dayton amps that are in there. There's two of them. I wanted to rip those out. We'll recycle those and put them in the At Games Legend arcade. We'll do a video about that, but we're going to recycle those amps. We're going to rip the speakers out of those kickers that are in there. We're going to rip that sub that's in here, the factory sub that's at the bottom right there. We're going to rip that out of there to make room to put these two in here with the amp. And that amp is going to drive those two speakers right there, and then the two speakers at the top. And the good thing is because it's a Sonos system, we'll be able to stream music from these speakers, and then the speakers that are in the surround sound bar, and even the speakers that are outside. And so like if I'm throwing a barbecue or a cookout or something like that, there's a big party going on, I could play music down here, stream it outside, and then people could come down to the bar. I mean, it's just going to be phenomenal. It's going to be awesome. Okay, so the math has been ran. I did my calculations, and this system should absolutely work just fine with this amp. So currently, the two speakers that are up here at the top are going to be version 3s, just like these. And they were some leftover ones that I had from the outdoor project, but those are going to be running off of 80 watts max. Now I have 4 of them. That'll be 320 watts max. Now the amp does 250 watt max at 125 watts per channel. So if you take 125 divided by 2, which will give you 62.5 watts per channel. Now, since the speakers are rated at 80, we are well within our tolerances to run this amp with 4 speakers. So, with all that being said, we're going to rip all that stuff out of there. And I do have this remote control that was a leftover from the I think it was the first time I bought the Connect amp that they had at Best Buy. I don't know if this is going to work with this amp, but we will find out later on. So without further ado, let's get this thing open. Let's rip all that crap out of there so we can recycle it for the At Games Legend arcade, and we'll take it from there. All right, so here we are once again. Got this thing back open for like the umpteenth time, but it is what it is. It's opened up. We're gonna gut this thing, and I don't really know exactly how I'm going to mount the speakers, but when I get to that bridge, I'll cross it then. So obviously I was wrong. They're OSD audio amps, not the Dayton amps that I thought I had in here. I mean, I just put so much crap in here, I don't even remember what the hell I'm putting in here anymore. So I'm gonna pull these two amps out. As far as the tweeters down here, I think I'm gonna keep that amplifier just to power those tweeters, because I don't want to take any more juice from the Sonos amp. I don't want to steal any more wattage from the Sonos amp that's gonna power those two version 3 speakers. This is the subwoofer box down here. We're gonna pull that out because that's not even being used at this point. It's just dead. It's just a box. It's just a stand basically for the kicker speakers that are behind there. So that box is gonna come out from some screws that are on the bottom. I'll show you how to do that. Obviously we're going to take this box out, which holds the two speakers in here. Once we do that, we'll need to find somewhere to mount this power distribution and old amplifier, the original old amplifier for the speaker system. We'll have to find somewhere to mount that. I'm thinking we could do it underneath here. The power strip and all that, we might have to upgrade that, add some more. I don't know. Probably not, because we're going to be taking away 2 plugs from there and just adding 1. The computer will still stay up here. I'm thinking we're going to put the Sonos amp right here, and then we'll rewire it all up and see how it sounds. Now, my worst fear with doing what I'm about to do is essentially I'm going to put outdoor speakers that are already in an enclosure inside of a box. So my biggest fear is I could have maybe like an echoing sound from the sound bouncing around within the jukebox. I feel that might happen maybe just a little bit, but since we have so many ports for the sound to go out, there's 2 ports down here and then there's the whole big port in there, I'm pretty sure there's going to be enough movement for the sound and it won't bounce around in the box. I hope it won't. Don't know, won't know until we get to that point. But for now, let's rip all this crap out of here and we'll take it from there. Okay, so we got the 2 OSD amplifiers. They've been pulled out of there. Most of the wiring from the tie mounts have been clipped. Everything's released. Everything's free. And all the wiring has been clipped off the subwoofer box and the speaker box. So this is all free, ready to come out. The wires to the speaker box have been disconnected. The only thing that's left on here is the power pack for the jukebox itself, but that'll be no problem. That'll just pull right out and we'll get that off of there because that's mounted with double-side tape. Now onto the power pack. Now here's where you need to pay attention. So if you've done other modifications and you followed my other videos and you ended up putting those OSD amps or any other kind of amp that you might have found off of Amazon, at this point you have already clipped your original speaker wires that came with the jukebox. Now originally I had those just tied to this little tie mount right here because they weren't bothering anything. But at this point, we don't need them anymore, so we could actually just pull them away. And you would just pull them away from the amplifier, just pull them right out, and you don't need them anymore. There's also this wire right here that goes to the subwoofer. We could actually pull that out of the amplifier too, because we don't need that anymore. That's not going to be there. And then we're going to flip this jukebox over. There are some bolts that are underneath the jukebox that will release the subwoofer. So let me get this jukebox flipped over and then I'll show you how to get this subwoofer box out of there next. All right, so what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to tip this thing over, and what I've done is I used a chair with a really soft blanket, because you got to be careful. If you've done the touch jams upgrade, you don't want to crack that screen. So you're going to want to cushion that. You're also going to want to throw some pillows underneath the front corners, because you don't want to scrape up your chrome and all that, the bubblers on the front. So in order to get this box out, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to remove these screws for the subwoofer. You're also going to have to remove these two screws right here that hold the subwoofer in. And then you could take these two screws at the corner out because you won't need these pieces, these stabilizing pieces of wood. Once you pop this open, you'll see nuts in there. They're going to be tied to these screws. I believe it's 5 of them. There's one there, one over there, one in the middle, one here, and one there. And then that will release your subwoofer box. So let me get these screws out and we'll take it from there. Okay, so we got all the screws have been released for the brackets on both sides. The screws for the back subwoofer box have been taken out. Now, there is a very important thing that I do have to mention. Now, in order to get this back plate off, I had to take these supporting brackets off in order to access the screws from both sides. Now, with that being said, you're going to want to reinstall these back on to the subwoofer box. And let me tell you why. It's because of the pitch that you have the subwoofer laying at. So when you release these nuts and those screws, what's going to happen is there's nothing supporting this box. This speaker box is going to want to push forward, and you could potentially destroy your speaker grill in the front. So that's why I'm telling you, make sure you put those brackets back in, so when you release these, that box won't try to push forward and destroy your front grill. So now the supports are back in on both sides. I was only putting just one screw on each one kitty corner, and that should be enough to hold the box when I release these bolts down here and prevent this thing from going forward. Okay, so now all the bolts from underneath the jukebox subwoofer have been removed. Now this thing is free and ready to go, with the exception of the 2 brackets that we held in there to keep this thing from falling forward and destroying the speaker grill. So now we could remove the 2 bracket plates on each side and this thing will pop right out. And just keep in mind, when you are pulling this thing out of here, you gotta be careful with your power pack. There were 4 screws that held this power pack in. The 2 screws here, and then the 2 screws on this side. And just make sure you remember to pull your wire from your amplifier power pack before pulling out the subwoofer assembly. All right, so here it is. This is the subwoofer assembly all pulled out of the box. This is what it's gonna look like. And like I said before, we are going to recycle this. We're going to use it for the At Games Legend arcade over there. That's going to be a video that's going to come out in the future. Somehow we're going to try to incorporate this into that arcade machine, because it's just, I mean, to be honest with you, the subwoofer that originally comes with the jukebox is a really good subwoofer. But for my standards, for a jukebox, it just didn't cut it. But I could see this subwoofer totally cutting it for an arcade game, but just not musical sense. More like I would say gameplay, but not it. To me, it wasn't meant for music. But it is a nice subwoofer. It does have some good bass to it, and we'll try to fit that in somehow. But you can take a look over here now that it's out of the jukebox. We have all this beautiful real estate down here. I mean, the possibilities are endless on how we could mount those speakers. And like I said, we'll have to try to find some way to put this somewhere, probably mounted at the top up there. You have the 2 holes down there at the bottom, and the main speaker grill is right there. So I don't think I'm going to have too much of a problem about echoing. I don't think it'll be that much of a problem, but we won't know until we get to that bridge. So right now, I'm just going to go ahead and clean this up a little bit and then try to figure out a way of how to mount those speakers in there. And through the power of YouTube, we will be right back. Here is what I have come up with and how I am going to mount these speakers. So right now, the speakers are on their brackets and they are clicked 3 turns to the corresponding side on which direction they are on, left and right, to face the speaker grill, so the music will just shoot straight out of the grill. Now, I'm going to take this 24.5-inch 2x4, and this is going to be mounted on the inside, and then the brackets are going to be attached to the 2x4s, and it's going to be 14.5 inches up in the air. So these things will be suspended at a nice height where they'll just point directly right out of the front grill. That's what I've come up with. That's what I'm sticking with, and we're going to see how it sounds. So let me get these mounted up. We'll put everything back together, and hopefully we won't have any echo sound, and it'll just sound phenomenal. But from here, we're just going to mount. We'll get that amp in next. I'll show you how to wire that up before we get this thing all back together, because I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. All right, so here's the bracket that I've created, the 2x4. It's going to be 24.5 inches. Then you're going to take each speaker bracket and you're going to bring it 7 inches off of the end on each side. One is going to be pointing this direction, the other one is going to be pointing this direction, so they're both facing the middle of the front grill of the jukebox. Now, you just have to keep in mind that the speakers have to be put on before you try to mount this bracket, because if you mount this bracket and the speakers aren't on there, you're not going to get those speakers onto these brackets. So just keep that in mind. Put the speakers on first, then mount the assembly inside. Okay, so before you mount in, you just want to make sure that you have the tweeters facing up, and the speakers are going to be obviously in the middle, and the speaker connections will be at the bottom, because at the height that I have chosen, you're going to want these tweeters to push out of the front grill. If you put these speakers in the other way, the tweeters are actually going to bounce off the wood and bounce around inside of the jukebox, and you don't want that. You want the sound to deflect straight out of that front grill right here. So just keep that in mind when you're mounting these in. Okay, so here it is. It's all braced up. It's all installed. And you're probably asking yourself, what the hell? That guy didn't mention those 2 legs. And you're right. I did not mention those 2 legs. So what had happened is when I put this in here originally, and I put the first the tack nails on each side just for a temporary thing, I thought to myself, you know what, this is a bad idea. Because if anybody knows Sonos speakers, they know that these speakers are massively heavy, and there was no way that this cheap chintzy MDF board was going to hold the massive weight of those speakers. Eventually moving this jukebox around and vibration, I mean, these speakers would have just tore that MDF board, that wood, right off, and they would have just fell and collapsed inside the box. So I thought to myself, I need more support. And so what I did was I took a 2x4 and I cut it to 9.5 inches on each leg, and then I pocket jagged these, and I put the 2 screws in here. So actually, let me just mention, you're going to have to put this speaker assembly without the legs in first, because if you attach these legs to this and try to fit it in, it's not going to work, because you have to take this speaker brace right here and it has to go in at an angle in order to get it in. So once you get the speaker brace in, then you can go ahead and put the legs underneath, do your tack nails, and screw it all in. So now it should be a lot more sturdy, and I don't have to worry about, you know, this cheap wood just ripping off from vibration and movement. Now, with all that being said, we're going to go ahead and get that Sonos amp in up here, and then we're going to wire this thing up and hopefully get it all back together. But obviously that's not going to happen today, because I got to go ahead and get ready for work. But through the magic of YouTube, here I am again. So everything is all wired up. And for anybody who hasn't watched any of the other previous videos, I could just do a quick recap of how to wire this thing up. So basically what you are doing is you are taking your RC jack right here that has the outputs for the external speakers. You're just going to plug in an RC jack that's going to be right here. You're going to plug it in there. You're going to put this bushing right here. Now you could look at my other videos on how to do the bushing, And the RC jack is going to come out, go through the bushing, and then you're going to have that RC jack right here, which is going to go here. And whether you're going to have another amplifier, which you probably want another amplifier for your tweeters back there, you're going to use a Y cable to split that, and then use any amp of your choice to do the tweeters. And then once you split that cable, the other cable will go up here to your Sonos amp. So that's how that's going to be done. And then obviously, depending on how many speakers you're using, and like I said before, I'm doing the 2 in here, and I also have the 2 external at the top, so that way I can get more dynamics with the left and the right channel. So you'll have your 2 channels right here, which is going to be left and right. You're going to have left for the inside speakers and left for the outside speakers, and then right for the inside speakers and right for the outside speakers. And these will just plug right into your Sonos amp. This will plug into your Sonos amp. And then you're going to have your external subwoofer, which I have. And the external subwoofer will come out through this other bushing that I have. Now, there is one other thing that I did do, and since I was here and I was inside this thing, I said, you know what? I'm going to make this thing 100% internally powered. Now, if you've looked at my other videos, you can tell what I was doing was I put the power strip, and then I had the power pack. But what I was doing was I was running the power pack out through this bushing and then plugging into back here to the original OEM. And I decided, you know what, that's enough of that. So what I did was I just put a sticker here that signifies that the power pack is now inside. So what I did was I took that little plug that was there, the original OEM plug, and then I just plugged the power pack into the OEM plug and taped it up. And I'll secure this to the side with a zip tie. And then that'll be just less crap coming out of the jukebox and then going back in. It wasn't necessary. So now it's 100% internally empowered. So let me get this Sonos amp up on this deck. Let me make my connections, and then we'll take it from there. Okay, so there is one other thing that I did forget to mention, and I just want to throw this out here, was the original amplifier was mounted on the back of the speaker box over here, and that's where your power distribution supply is also on the back of that amplifier. And since I took that out of there, I had to find somewhere to put it. And what I did was I just mounted it up here on the bottom of this shelf. Just want to throw that out there as an idea of where you could possibly mount it. You could mount it wherever you want. I could have mounted it to the side, but I figured at the bottom of this shelf was better for me. Okay, so before I go ahead and mount this, I just want to go over how I'm going to mount it. Now, what I'm using is Velcro, and the reason why I'm using that is because in case if I ever need to service this unit, I don't want it to be permanently put in there. So this Velcro is industrial strength Velcro, and I'll put a link in the description for it. Like I said before on my other videos, I don't try to promote products or anything like that. You buy whatever the hell you want. I'm just trying to give you an idea of what I did and how I did it. So anyway, moving on to the connections. So it's pretty simple. You have your left and right channels. You're going to plug the speaker connections in there. You're going to plug your RC jacks here and your subwoofer. Now, as far as the internet, you don't need that because it can go off of Wi-Fi. We're not going to use the HDMI because we're not going to be putting anything on the HDMI. You have your power here, and then one big thing to mention. You are going to want to pair with the Sonos app before you close the jukebox up. Because if you close this jukebox up and you don't pair with the Sonos amp, you are SOL. So just wanted to throw that one out there real quick. All right, so just to give you a quick recap on everything that was pulled out of that jukebox from previous upgrades, if you watch the other videos. Pulled out the factory speaker box that was originally in there from Art Rocket. Now, this is what they had in there originally. This is the original subwoofer. That was not replaced. I did upgrade to kicker speakers. I mean, they were okay, but they're not Sonos speakers. So, I mean, they did the trick, but they just weren't what I was looking for. And like I said, I'm going to recycle these and I'm going to put them in the At Games Legend arcade. Somehow I'm going to do it. I'm going to make it work. These were the OSD audio amplifiers that I had originally had upgraded and was running the original factory box, but then I upgraded to the kickers, so then it was running that, and then it was running the two Sonos speakers up at the top, and then obviously you had all those Y connectors and all that stuff that was pulled out of there because we don't need all that. I mean, we're using the Sonos amp, and then the speakers to the original factory amp. So more wiring, more cables, more brackets. I mean, it's just a lot of stuff that didn't need to be in there now that we've upgraded. So with that being said, let's see the finished product. Okay, so the amplifier has been hooked up, the cabinet has been closed up, and I was able to program the old controller that I had from Best Buy deal with the Sonos Connect amp deal. So that was a very simple process. What you do is you just basically, you're going to have to download the iPort app, and you'll hit the plus key, and then you'll go ahead and push the two down and up buttons right here, and you'll hold that for about 6 seconds. It'll sync, then you'll hook up to your network, and then it'll find the devices on your network, and then you're ready to set that thing up. And it controls this amp pretty decent. I mean, there are a lot of bad reviews about this remote, but I mean, it does what I needed it to do, and it has a magnet built inside. I'm not sure where I'm going to put it. I know I'm like totally against the whole, putting stuff on this because I think it looks a little tacky, but for now I'll just keep it there. Now, there are a couple ways to run this jukebox now that it's been set up the way it has, because the amplifier can run off the amp, or the amplifier can actually run off the jukebox head itself, the original jukebox head right here, which is the CD player, the Amazon that I hooked up to the back, the record player. Now, in order to do that, you'll have to set your Sonos amp up to run into line-in autoplay. So to get to autoplay, all you're going to do is go to your settings button right here. Then you're going to hit your system, and then you're going to see your entire system. Now, I already named mine Jukebox, so we'll hit on Jukebox. And then you're going to scroll down till you'll see the line in. Once you see the line in, I've already named it Internal Jukebox. What you can do is you'll see a little tab right here that says Autoplay. So you hit that. Now it's going to say Autoplay Room. So every time that amp sees a line-in signal, it will play that line-in signal to the room that you want it to. So obviously we want it to the jukebox. Now, if I wanted to, I could also have it do the surround sound speakers, but I don't want it to do that. I just want it to do the jukebox. So we're just going to click jukebox. And then we'll go ahead, we'll go back, and then you have options where you could actually adjust the volume on autoplay. So when this thing hears the volume, I believe that the setting is when you turn the jukebox on, it automatically goes to 16. I could be wrong on that, but I believe it's 16 volume. But if I wanted this thing to automatically go to maybe 50% because 16 is too low for me, I would just hit this button right here, and then I could adjust the autoplay volume when it sees or it realizes there's a signal coming in. But for now, 16 seems fine for me. I don't want to be blasted by music when this thing is turned on. So I'm just going to leave this function off, and we're going to use the factory headset volume, which is 16, that comes from Art Rocket. Right. So let's take this thing for a test drive, and let's see if the autoplay function will operate the way we want it to. So currently right now, the Art Rocket Jukebox is off. Now, they have it so that when the unit is off, the LEDs will still show up and they'll display their colors, so it's kind of like a aesthetic look. But you can turn this on, and when you first turn it on, the LEDs are going to turn off because the first option that comes up is going to be AM FM, and the LEDs interfere with AM FM. So once you scroll through the other options, which would be record player, CD, the LEDs will automatically turn on. So what we are going to do is we're going to play a song from here, and then we're going to hope that the autoplay function will work, and that what will happen is the head unit will override the Sonos app. So let's go ahead and do that.
Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
Yep, that's right. Just when I thought I was out of this thing. So apparently when I started this thing up, it sounded great with the Sonos speakers, but the problem is when you use the line in, you get audio delay from the tweeters that are connected to the head unit. And listening to the tweeters and listening to the Sonos speakers, you could just tell how crappy and how terrible this amp and speaker system is on the tweeter side to the head unit. And at this point, I've decided, you know what, I've spent this much money on the Sonos amp and the Sonos speakers. Let's just pull all this chintzy crap out of here that I've put in on the other upgrades. So that's where I am right now. I'm going to pull these tweeters out of here. Just going to leave those ports open. That'll give this thing more room to breathe. And we will conserve some energy on getting rid of this amp that really isn't doing us any good at this point. Okay, so here we are. It's round 2. We've pulled out the tweeters. We've pulled out the tweeter amplifier. And currently right now we are just using the Sonos speakers, the 2 that are inside and the 2 that are up here. Now, there was an audio delay and the tweeters inside were getting music before the Sonos speakers were. Now, there is an auto delay function that we could have used in the amp, but to me at this point, it just seemed that it wasn't worth the hassle and it was just better to pull out those tweeters that were in there, because if I wanted more treble, all I need to do is just go to the EQ and I could just basically give more treble to the speakers up here than the 2 that are in the front. So I decided to go ahead and remove those to give more air to the unit and the PC that's inside. And I was a little worried about echoing of the speakers inside, but there is no echoing at all. It actually sounds phenomenal. So the basic thing that I want to test right now is if the autoplay function is going to work. I want to see that if I play something from the app, I want to see if I use the head unit, will the head unit override the application? So let's go ahead and do that now. We'll go ahead and we'll open something up in the Sonos app. We'll play something. So we are now playing direct from the Sonos app. So now what we're going to do is we're going to try to override that by playing something from the head unit. And we'll just go ahead and change the mode and we'll put it to CD player. CD player is starting up. It's playing, and it worked. We could see here that the line input has taken over the application and has said, hey, I have priority over the app. That's exactly what we want. All right, so there's one last thing that I want to walk through with you before I go ahead and call this project a wrap. Now, since I am using the Sonos amplifier as the main amp now to do the head unit, you have to make sound modifications before you call it a done deal. And let me tell you what I'm talking about. So, if you're just going to use the jukebox head unit, you're going to be using the volume up and down from here. You won't be using the volume remote or the volume from the app. I mean, you could do that, but if you're all drunk down here sitting at the bar, nobody's going to want to open their phone, try to open an app and try to raise the volume. They just want to come over here, they want to push a button, they want the sound to go up and be happy. So, in order to make the head unit work correctly with the volume buttons, now you need to go into the autoplay and set up your autoplay volume, okay? So that is going to be the volume that the Sonos amp will play at its maximum volume when it sees the line signal. So what does that mean? That means if I turn this thing all the way up to 30, okay, because that's what this head unit will go up to. It will go up to 30 max. That's as high as it goes. What I set here will be the maximum of the sound at 30. So what I'll be doing is I'll be controlling this right here, the Sonos amp, from the volume here. So when I go up to 30, my maximum volume on my amp is already set. Now I set it to 95% because once you get to about 100%, you do start to hear a little bit of vibration here because, I mean, it's very loud. I mean, these speakers blast your ears and it's a lot louder than what was in there originally. So I set it to 95 because that was the point where the vibration from this grill stopped. And I was very happy with it. This thing could go up to 100%, but with the vibration, I just don't feel like going ahead and trying to find out where that little noise is coming from. So I just capped it at 95%. So to sum it all up, if I could do it all over again, I probably never would have threw all this crap in here. I would have never threw these OSD amplifiers. I wouldn't have upgraded these speakers. I mean, it was nice for what it was at the time, you know, but if I could do it all over again, people, I would tell you, disregard everything I said in the previous videos. Now, if you're on a budget and you can't afford a $900 Sonos amp with the Sonos speakers, then yeah, I would go that route. But if you got the money and you and your wife is just like not gonna chop your head off about it, then just go straight to the Sonos amp and just do this instead, because it's a lot cleaner installation. It's a lot better sound system. You get more dynamic doing it like this. And not only that, you could stream the music in different areas of your house if you have more than one Sonos system. All right. So I could truly say that this is most likely going to be the last video that I ever make on this jukebox. I have now felt like I have gotten to the point where this jukebox is modded the F out. I don't think there's any more I can do to this thing. I've already replaced the front screen. I put touch jams in there. I've upgraded the sound system to sound phenomenal. It can stream on other sound systems in the house, outside. Was this a good choice of using what I did in the previous videos? Yeah, I mean, if you're on a budget and you can't afford something like this, then that route will definitely get you to where you need to be. But if you got the money, I would just forego the other videos and just go straight with the Sonos system. I have a philosophy that coffins don't have luggage racks. When you die, you can't take the money with you. My wife hates it when I say that. But what I say is, she's not the one spending the money and going to work every day. Now, I really wouldn't say that, but since she doesn't watch my channel, I could say that. Thanks for watching, guys.